I don't know. Well, we'll just go ahead and start a countdown here, guys. 3, 2, 1. Hello, and welcome to The Good, The Bored, and The Ugly. I am your host, the Tom Vassell of this podcast, Joe Sallin. I'm joined by the Suzanne of our podcast.
That'd be me, I'm sure, Trent Ham.
Yes, the play all of the games, Trent.
Yes.
And the Eric Summerer of our podcast.
Andrew Dennison. And, of course, I'm the one who plays the good games.
Oh, yes. The Andrew
Big fan of Merchant of Venus, are you?
Yeah, big fan. Big fan.
He loves Merchant of Venus, which is it's in the same spirit as all Phil Eklund games. Roll and move.
And Bus.
And Bus, yes. Yes, Bus is actually one of the big. They're a big fan of that one. He also loves Indonesia, which
he likes some really good games.
Yeah,
and I also feel like a weird irrational hatred for Citadels.
I feel a weird irrational hatred for a lot of games. Citadels actually doesn't even register on them.
Yeah. Actually, from what I've heard of Citadels, I'm pretty sure that actually would fall in a hatred level for me.
Well, my opinions entirely depend on how much money I was given to make the review, which makes me the perfect host of this podcast.
Yeah.
That's why I hate everything.
Wait, you were given money? What the hell? You haven't given me any.
Yeah. No, yeah, exactly. Why do you think I'm so salty? I've been given nothing. I hate everything. Jonathan will like that. He thinks I hate fun. Well, ladies and gentlemen, tonight we are actually going to talk to you about a topic that was made entirely possible because of the great Tom Vassell, who I actually do totally respect as my mentor in the board gaming hobby. My sort of like surrogate, I don't know, like I feel like he's like my stepdad or my birth father, who then, I don't know, who I gave me up, or maybe I ran away from home. But recently there was a very interesting episode of Board Game Breakfast, which all of the episodes of Board Game Breakfast are worth your viewing. Yes, that's right. I agree, and I endorse that statement fully. I really like Board Game Breakfast. I think it's an excellent program. And Tom Vassell recently talked about the artwork on boxes influence your decision. And just sort of like, by that, he uses sort of a metaphor to more widely discuss the external factors that impact your opinion of a board game. So that'll be our topic for today. After that, we are going to hype games. Before that, we're going to review games, which would put us right now, it's about time to review a few games. Let's go ahead and get this all kicked off with Andy telling us about his online ventures in the 18xx realm.
Yes, a review of a game that will never be reviewed on the Dice Tower.
Well, you never know, man. Now that Jason reviewed 1846, Jason is your man.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see. Anyway, so I'm going to talk a little bit about 18 Ardennes. This is a, 18xx stock, all that good stuff. This one's kind of interesting, though. I've played this once, so this is kind of initial thoughts. I'm in a second game of it now, trying to see kind of where it goes. But this game reminds me of like the parent of 18OE. So it feels very like that, in that there's a lot of building up of companies. So you start off by basically auctioning all of these minor companies. There's like 15 minor companies in the game, and you auction all of them. All of them are going to be running from the beginning of the game. You run these guys, you get some money off of them. They can't own a lot of trains. They don't have a lot of tokens, but they make okay money. And then eventually you will auction off the rights to open a major company. And when you open a major company, it starts out as a 5-share company. So there's only 5 shares in it, 40, 20, 20, 20, percentage-wise. When you open this, you have to pay for the president's certificate. And then what you do is you replace one of your minor companies with the major, and then that gives you a bonus share of that company. So you're starting out with 3 shares of these 5-share major companies. You will then be running those. The goal, of course, making money. At some point, you can just decide whether you're going to convert your 5-share company into a 10-share company. And when you convert to a 10-share company, of course, your stock splits, but now you can own more of it. So each bump is going to give you more value. However, there's reasons why you may or may not want to do that. So if you're running a 5-share company and you pay out a whole lot of money, you can double jump on the stock market. You can go up twice if you make, double your current value. With the 10-share company, you can't do that. No matter how much you make, it's a single jump. But on the other hand, when you're a 10-share company, you can trade in one of the higher level trains to get the highest level train. So you get it at a discount. A 5-share company cannot do this. So there's reasons why you may or may not want to convert. Now, the other thing you can do that's really cool is you can trade in your minor companies for shares of a major company. So for example, in my first game, I created a major company. It was doing very well, and you could buy up to 60% ownership of your major company. So I did that. Now, the fun part is you can continue to merge your minor companies into this major and get a share of stock above 60%. So in the end, I ended up owning 90% out of my big major company because I just kept trading in these miners into it. And the advantage of doing that is when you do that, you get all of the miners' treasury, you get to replace your tokens, the minor tokens with the majors tokens free of charge. You get all of their money, you get all of their trains, you can kind of decide what pieces of it to keep. So it's this really interesting puzzle of when do you open that big company? What minor company are you going to use to do it? When are you going to merge them in? Because here's the cool thing. Let's say your minor company is right now worth $90. When you trade it in for a share of a major company, you use double its value. So let's say my major company right now is at 180. I can trade it in for free. If my major company is worth more, I have to pay the difference. So basically, by trading a minor in, you're immediately doubling its value. But on the other hand, now that you don't have this minor, you have less board actions. You can't lay as many tiles, you can't buy as many trains, you can't do as many actions. So it's this really interesting puzzle quandary of, okay, when do I merge them in? When do I open that major? When do I go to 10 shares instead of 5 shares? And then whoever does that's going to kind of win out. Now, the other thing that makes this one tricky and kind of like 18OE is you really have to go into this one knowing your end game. You need to look at the board, think about, okay, which miners am I going to go for? Why am I getting them? What is my long-term plan? Because if you just grab any old miner that looks good and they don't synergize well, they don't have the right board positioning, because there's all kinds of bonuses you can get on the board. Like if you get a mining area and you token it, that city's worth double to you. If you get these forts and you're connected to Paris, you get more money. If you're on a port, you get more money. If you can run a train across east-west, you get more money per token in that route. If you can run it north-south, you get more money. If you can run one of those nice little diesel trains and hit a north-south, east-west, you get even more money. So you really have to have a long-term strategy. This is much more of a engineering, much more of a track laying. The stock market's one-dimensional. There's really no shenanigans you're going to be pulling with the stock market. It's very much of, okay, this is my initial position. What's my big plan? What's my big goal? And then you play it out to see if your big plan is better than anybody else's big plan. The only way you're going to mess with each other much is not really by stock. It's going to be tokening, I lay this track here to block you, that kind of thing. So very, very similar to 18OE in feel. Plays in a shorter amount of time. This one's probably a 5-6 hour at tops. So it's got that advantage to it, but it's really fun. It definitely rewards those who really like that long-term vision, the long-term strategic plan of what they want to build and how they want to do it. So that's 18 Ardennes. I'm looking forward to my second play of this and seeing if any of the lessons from the first one pan out. I have heard the rumor in the 18XX world, they say this one's broken or there's some dominant strategy. Yeah, I'm not at that level, so we'll see if that actually, appears at some point. But so far, really enjoying it, really looking forward to this second play. And when I have that under my belt, maybe one more, I'll bring back again and see if my thoughts are still the same.
Well, Andy, you continued to make what you were saying about this sound meaningfully different than other games I've heard. And the main current was that this is a strategic game. You're not reacting to other players like you are in most other 18xx games where people are constantly trying to undermine your plans. Here, it's more of a you go for something and you see how it plays out. That makes me excited, but do you think it's too lacking in the tactics department?
Not so much, but like I said, the tactics aren't stock-based. I know you played 18OE once, Joe, so it's similar to that. Like the interaction is going to come from how you build your track, what route you do, which tokens you put down. So if you're going to block someone off, it's going to be more on the board than it is the stock market. There's not a whole lot of reward or reason to buy somebody's stock, not Spock. That's different.
Buy their Spock.
Buy their Spock. I will and always have been your friend, whatever that line was. Okay, anyway. Yeah, there's no reason to really try to buy up somebody's stock and then turn around and sell it off to start a new company or something like that. Your interaction is going to come through the board. It's going to be how you lay your track, where you place your tokens. Try best route for yourself while keeping other people out of your route and blocking their routes. That's really how this game's going to play out. And so whoever kind of makes the best decisions there is gonna win out in this game. At least that's how I feel right now.
Sure. Well, yeah, it seems like at this point, it sounds like that's quite different from what you're used to seeing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it does have a very similar thing to 18OE in that your game, it may not be won or lost in that initial auction, but it definitely is going to depend on that initial auction a lot. If you just pay way too much and end up, because there's 15 companies, so let's say you bid crazy high for them and you only end up with 3, and then other players have 6 or 7 of them, there's no reason to even continue playing. You've lost that game. There's nothing you're going to do that's going to pull you out of that, at least as far as I can tell. Same with 18OE. If somebody is starting with more stuff than you because you bid too crazy high thinking your one was going to way outplay like 2 or 3 other ones, that just isn't going to happen. I'm sorry, you're done. So you got to be really smart about that auction. You got to really value that high. So I think this is probably not one for a beginner or somebody who's not used to valuing an auction or has enough 18xx experience to look at a board and go, okay, this one's gonna have good runs. This one is gonna be good long term. This one's gonna be good short term. If you're not really at the level where you can do that, this is probably not a good game for you because you're not gonna know how to bid, you're not gonna bid right, and you're probably gonna get shut out way early.
Yeah. It sounds like a couple of games are going to make you really difficult to overcome if you've just got a little experience.
Yeah, right. And I have a similar, and I played 18OE a lot more, and I would say that's a similar feeling. Like somebody who knows where the good things are and where the good places to start are is going to do a lot better there.
Sure, yeah. So sort of like that I lost this game in the first hour feeling.
Yeah. Like 18OE, the phrase I said, it took me 16 hours to realize I lost this in the first half hour.
Mm-hmm. Yay.
Yeah. Not quite that extreme in this game, though. To be like, it took me 5 hours to realize I lost this in the first half hour.
Nice. Well, thank you, Andy, for telling us all about 18 Ardennes. Trent, would you let us know about a solo game that has recently been released on the App Store?
Yeah, I figure if I'm the Suzanne of this episode, I should probably be talking about an app, right?
Yeah. I want to hear about the lack of online play or the lack of pass and play here, Trent.
Well, I don't know that this. Yeah, I mean this is a solo game.
It's a solo game. Where's the pass and play?
Yeah, it's a solo game. The box of the actual printed version says 1 to 2, but it's a solo game. Let's just stick with that.
I wonder how did they even get 2 out of it?
I honestly don't know.
There's rules in the game to do it 2-player, but most people, where like often a solo game can feel tacked on, in this game the 2-player feels tacked on.
I think I remember reading about them and I was like, nope, and just it's a solo game. I'm going to talk about Onarim. I believe that's how it's pronounced.
Yeah,
we'll go with that.
I'm not aware of that. It sounds Japanese to me, faintly Japanese. Onarim, Onarim.
Yeah, Onarim if you're looking that up on Board Game Geek.
Yep.
It's a solitaire game. It's currently being published by Z-Man in a fairly nice little second edition that includes 7 expansions in the box. But as I said, it's a solitaire card game, and there's very recently been an app released by Asmodee on the App Store that's really nice, but the app only includes the base game. And the thing with Onarim is that the base game is really, really, really simple. It's like Klondike Solitaire simple, if not simpler than that. You essentially have a deck of about 84 cards. There's 8 cards throughout it that are basically the cards you need to extract from the deck as you're playing. There's essentially 4 different colors, and there's 3 symbols within those colors. So you have like a quarter of the deck is one color, a quarter of the deck's like the red, blue, green, and yellow, or tan, or
brown.
Like
Yes, yeah, it's brown.
But those are the 4 different colors, and each of those suits has cards with different symbols on them. There's just a few different symbols, and then there's many duplicates of those. And in the base game, there's also a few monster cards. I believe there are 10 of them total throughout the deck.
Yep.
So as you're playing, throughout the game, you have a hand of 5 cards. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to play a sequence of 3 cards of the same color, but without any 3 cards in a row having the same, any 2 cards in a row having the same symbol. Mm-hmm. So if you're playing a star, you need to follow it with a key, and then you can follow that with anything but a key as long as they're in the same color. If you do that, then you can search through the deck, find one of the 8 foundation cards that you're looking for that match that color. So there's 2 of each color. So you say you do that with red, you go find one of the red ones, pull it out of the deck. You're an 1/8 of the way to winning. So every time you play a card, you have to draw one to replace it. You can also just discard a card and draw one to replace it if you don't have any reason to play it because you're trying to get the right card. But there's these bad cards that come up, and when they come up, you have a number of ways you can resolve them.
Oh, they are hard, too.
Yeah.
They can hit you. They can smoke you hard.
That's the fun part of the game. That's the challenge of it, is the bad cards. You can either just discard a card with a key symbol on it to get rid of it, or you can ditch your whole hand to get rid of it, or you can ditch 5 cards off the top of your deck to get rid of it, or you can essentially reshuffle one of those 8 cards you pulled out, the foundation cards, back into your deck. That's one of the only ways you can resolve the bad cards that come up. It's one of those 4, and they're all terrible options. None of them
are fun. Like getting rid of a key from your hand is by far the least devastating.
Yeah, and the key cards are very, very valuable in the game. Once you see one, you
powerful.
Yeah, you kind of want to hold on to them. But that's the base game of it. That's pretty much all there is to it. It's a really quick playing a solitaire game. If you're looking for a quick 5-minute solitaire game to play on your phone that's not going to involve a whole lot of thought, and it's just, I'm going to play this in 5 minutes and then play it again for 5 minutes and then play it again for 5 minutes. This is a really good app. It's on sale right now for 99 cents. It's worthwhile. But it's a very simple game. It doesn't have a whole lot of staying power on its own. The printed game has 7 expansions, and pretty much all of them are entertaining. Most of them just add a few more cards to the deck is what they do. And they just had different twists on gameplay. So a lot of them have the theme of they add some cards that make the game easier and some that make it harder. And they're just twists on how the game works. Like you'll have these cards that act as guardians for the foundations, but there's also bad cards in there you also have to deal with. There's spell cards that have special effects. They do all kinds of different things, but each one of them that you add, the 7 separate expansions, changes the game enough to make it interesting. And what I found with the printed version was each time I added an expansion on its own, it made it fun for about 3 or 4 more games, and I was bored. And then I'd want to add a different expansion. But if you add them all one at a time, and then you start playing with combinations of them, you actually can get a lot of life out of the printed version. because there's a lot of permutations. And I found that each permutation is interesting for about 3 or 4 games for me. And that, to me, is more than enough value out of the printed version. It's a solitaire game. It's not that expensive. I can get quite a few plays out of it, and that's really all I want. So I'm pretty happy with the printed version. The app gives you a good taste, and it's only 99 cents. But the app doesn't really give you how much fun it can be because I think the expansions add a lot. So if this sounds interesting to you, like a simple solitaire game that you can play on your phone for 99 cents, or maybe the same game with a little bit more complexity that you can buy for like $15 or something like that, Onirim is right for you. ONIRIM. Go check it out. I quite like it. It's not a real deep or heavy game, even with all the expansions in it, but it's a nice, light little solo game that you can play pretty much any time. That's my thoughts.
Fair enough. Andy, you want to chime in? Or do you want me to go first and then you can respond to me?
I don't know. I mean, I think my thoughts are very similar to Trent in that I have the printed version of the game, and I kind of bought it as I was exploring solitaire gaming. And I think for me, where it has value is in one of two situations. Either I kind of want to play some kind of a quick game before I go to bed. Like, I just want to get my brain working on something a little bit that isn't going to take super deep thought, but just kind of, shuffle some cards around. I don't really want to play a video game or something like that. I think where it has the highest value for me is when I'm traveling. So if I'm going to like my in-laws' house or something, this is a game I will often bring because, if I need some me time and need to get away for a little bit, I'll just go upstairs, play a quick game of Onirim, and then, go back downstairs. It doesn't really overstay its welcome and anything like that. I would agree with Trent. It's not a super deep game. There's not like, super thinky decisions there. It basically, to me, it's like pulling out a deck of cards and playing a game of solitaire, except Onirim just has some nicer, more interesting things to do than solitaire does.
Yeah, I would feel the exact same way about it.
Yeah, and so, I don't know, that's all I wanted out of it, and that's all I need out of it, and that's fine, I guess. So, yeah, that's basically it. For a nice, quick little thing, I'm here, I'll play this, and it doesn't... The problem with some of the other Oniverse games is they either lose their portability or they're table hogs, so they become more difficult as a travel game. So I don't know. I'm happy with it. It wasn't incredibly expensive. You get a fair amount for what you pay for. Is it my favorite game? No. Is it like unbelievable star quality? No. But, it does what it does. I wouldn't play it as an app, though. I think if I wanted this, I would just want the deck of cards in my hand.
I got a couple of comments here. First of all, Andy, I thought that games that you weren't that excited about, but your wife, like, this is a game that you play solo. It's not one that you play with your wife. I thought there was like this dead zone that was fairly vast between games that you are passionate about and excited about, and then games that you play with your wife. And I didn't realize that solitaire games had this sort of little niche within that. And that's something I just discovered from what you said. Secondly, I want all of our listeners to take what I say with a little grain of salt, because I am only experienced in the app, and I've not played any of the expansions to this game. My experience is I downloaded the app because I've heard some really good things about Onirim as a solitaire game, or Onirim, whatever it is. I think that, Trent, your pronunciation is probably more accurate, but the gringos like me, and I say gringos for everyone because I'm a Spanish teacher, everyone who looks at a word and pronounces it like they would in English. Anyway, I think that Onirim is, it has like this sort of, I don't know, like a reputation as a solitaire game. And I compared it in my own mind to like Friday, which I really like Friday, but I never play it because, well, it's a solo game, and I have to have it with me to really be able to play it. And usually when I want to play a solo game, or when I'm in the mood to play a solo game, I'm on a bus and it's dark and it's not possible. Anyway, I downloaded Onirim a few days ago when I was on a bus ride and I get a little bit motion sick in a school bus, and I've been riding a lot of them recently. So I downloaded it on the way to one of our tennis meets, and it was about an hour and a 45-minute drive because we live in central Iowa, and the only good tennis opponents happen to live that far away. On the way back, so I wanted to download this and then have it get me through the way there and the way back, and it didn't. It did not come close. Like, I got almost there to the place, to our destination, and I felt like I'd already played it out. Maybe it's that the actual playing of the game on the app reduces a lot of the playtime because of the automatic shuffling. I can only imagine, like, I respect what you guys are saying about the extra content in the physical version, but you are shuffling this deck constantly. Like, you go through the deck every time, like, you'll shuffle it in one play. Even though the game only takes 15 minutes, you're still shuffling the deck at least like 7 times. And that's, you know, sometimes you'll even shuffle it more. Every time that you draw a card that you can't use, like one of the, what Trent called foundation cards, they're called like doors in the game. Every time you draw one of those, you have to reshuffle it if you can't use it. Like, you reshuffle the whole deck, you shuffle it back in. And it just results in just constant shuffling. And in the game, it's really fast. In the app, it's really fast. I can only imagine in person, you're just, it's one of those games where I feel like you look across the room, see somebody who's on a plane playing Onirim, and they're just always shuffling. They just never stop. Anyway, in my experience, Onirim is similar to what Andy said. It offers about the same decision space as, say, a game of solitaire. It's like I look at my hand, and I feel fairly confident that these are my choices, and they're really not that different from one another. It's just sometimes a very salient, obvious, good choice is there. For example, if you get 3 cards that you can play in a row on top of the previously played cards, you know that, like, this is a door for me. And the only tension in that comes from maybe you'll draw one of the bad things. Like Trent said, that's kind of where the fun comes. But then that's also where your score gets lower. The app tracks how many cards you have left in your deck as sort of like this benchmark of how well you played the game. And the sad thing is, the game is so random that it doesn't matter how many cards are left in the deck. My best game ever of Onirim, I had 30 cards left in the deck. And I feel like it was the game that I made the least decisions. I didn't do anything. Everything was just served right up to me. It was like as if I dealt out cards at the start of Pandemic and everybody had 4 of a kind. That was my perfect game. I've now played it 30 times on the app. I would say about the last 12 to 15 of those were after I'd tired of the game, just to see if I could get a high score and I had nothing else to do. And I have to say that, like, I feel like the foundation here is fairly feeble. I've looked in and read the description of what the different expansions do, and I just see everything as still maintaining that same base strategy of, I hope that I get, like, the right combination of cards in my hand so I can play 3 in a row and get a key. Or not to get a key, but get a door. And the only choices come up when I happen to luck into a key, and that tends to be more interesting. But, man, the games, when it doesn't happen, you feel like you're just spinning a whole bunch of wheels and the game isn't letting you do anything. My review of Onirim is play it at your own risk.
Okay.
I was waiting for somebody else to say something so we could go on.
No.
All right, no, we'll just stay here, guys. We're going to hover in this sort of limbo in between reviews for forever.
Yep.
Or until I start to tell you guys about my review. It's a game called Sagrada. It deserves an awful lot more time than I can really give it here, because Sagrada is a game about building stained glass windows. Building, because that's what we always do. We build dresses, we build stained glass windows. We just do that in our hobby. You know, we take these sort of aesthetic, you know, like craftsman and artisan type professions, and we make them into games. And by we, I mean people much more talented than myself. And then we try to attach rules to them that somehow feel like the actual activity. And in Sagrada, you are making stained glass windows in the most famous basilica in the world, and if it's not, it should be. It's called Sagrada Familia. It's in Barcelona, and my wife and I have been to travel it. It's been in my hype section because I was really pumped to get this game. In the game, you're going to be drafting dice, much like you do in Grand Austria Hotel, only the quantity of dice that are available mean nothing except for that maybe you want that 3 blue. There's 4 different colors of dice. The first player will grab the amount of dice equal to the number of players times 2 plus 1, and then roll them all and choose one, and then it snake drafts back to the first player, goes through all the other players, then backwards to the first player, who will have to choose from one of the 2 leftover dice, and then puts the leftover die on a round track, and basically at that point, you've now got 2 extra dice that you've added to your stained glass window. The rules to building your stained glass window are fairly simple. You have to build them so that you're connected to everything else, but you can't put anything orthogonally adjacent that's the same color or number. And there's 4 different colors of dice, obviously 6 different numbers. And at the end of the game, you're going to then be hopefully filled in all the way, because at the end of the game, you lose points for every space that you've not filled in. It's a 4x5 grid, so you're going to have 20 spaces of dice. It's 10 rounds. Anyway, your scoring criteria depends on what you have drawn for your 3 scoring cards. And this might remind listeners of Kingdom Builder, a game which I have fawned over. In this game, your scoring is much more simple than Kingdom Builder and actually feels very similar to each other. For example, you're trying to get 4 in a column that are all different colors, and that same goal, because you have columns that are 4 high, you have rows that are 5 wide, so then they, of course, use that same goal for like your rows as well. But there's only 4 colors, so you can't do that for rows. Instead, they use numbers for both rows and columns. Anyway, the design of these specific scoring cards are not entirely impressive, but they are fairly malleable. And you can take those scoring cards and kind of, as you draw them, what I'm finding is I like it more is as I'm drawing the cards, I take them out and I'm like, this sounds like it'll be fun with this one. Not so much like I just take the random 3 that I draw, because believe me, you're going to end up with some really unfun games. Like, for example, there is a scoring card for giving you points for every pair of 1s and 2s, every pair of 3s and 4s, and every pair of 5s and 6s. If those are your 3 scoring cards, you're going to play about the most boring game of anything I could ever imagine. You're just going to score basically all the same, depending on how much of a set of that specific number you can get. Anyway, it gets much more interesting because of the fact that these scoring can work well with one another, provided that you have a fairly seasoned eye picking your scoring cards. It can be good. It can be boring. I would say that the depths of the boredom can be much more deep than, say, Kingdom Builder, which can have some fairly boring scoring. But at the same time, it can reach some of those same heights as Kingdom Builder can when you get a nice combo of 3 interesting scoring conditions that make you sort of play with the mechanisms present in the game. And that's not the only thing going on here in Sagrada. You've also got tools to use. So you have a unique window blueprint that you're supposed to fill, and you choose from like 26 different ones that you get in the game that I have. And you're trying to then use these, depending on the difficulty of your window, you get a certain amount of tokens that you can use towards using these tools that'll let you, say, modify dice, as in like Castles of Burgundy, what you can do with workers. It has really nice, slick mechanisms here working well, and I think that the production is absolutely top-notch. Like, it's a fairly simple game that could have been done on a much smaller scale, but I think it's somewhat like, it makes me feel like I'm really building this interesting, like, window. When I've got all these different colors next to each other, I feel like I'm really making patterns and not just, like, blobs, to try to score points. So anyway, all in all, Sagrada has me very interested, though it is not anywhere close to Kingdom Builder. It is it is below Kingdom Builder, an entire tier. But you know who loves it? My wife does. And that, to me, means that it has something special. It intersects in our Venn diagram of what games we like. It is a very small section that intersects where we can both have fun together. And Sagrada strikes that balance. And that is what's special about it.
Yep, if your wife will play it, it stays in the collection.
Not always. Like I have like, I'm going to say this under my breath here, but I have definitely traded away some games I hated because she liked them, and I was like, I never want to play this game again. Like, yeah. I don't think I can take it.
Caroline, if you're listening to this, he's auctioning pastiche right now.
No. There are sacred things in my house too, Andy. But there are others. I'm not going to name any names here. I'm not incriminating myself here. We're just going to move on. Unless Trent, do you have anything to say about Sagrada?
No, I'm unfamiliar with it, so no.
Fair enough. All right. Well, guys, let's start by saying I think Sagrada has one of the most intriguing box arts I've ever seen. Like, I don't know. I feel like so many times when I see a board game cover, I wonder what exactly it was that led the company to sort of ask for this specific portrayal. Like, when I think of Sagrada, I think they wanted Sagrada's cover to look literally like a stained glass window you might find in the actual cathedral. They wanted people to be drawn to like the colorful aspect of it. I think that is what's really a great selling point of the game. Even the dice that are depicted in this game seem to meld seamlessly as if they're a part of the stained glass window. Like when I look for player colors in this game, I have to look really closely because of just how integrated the artwork is into the game's functions. And then I look at a game like, say, Great Western Trail, and I think that they tried to make this game's front cover artwork look like it was maybe a John Wayne movie cover. And there's many other examples of this, but is it okay for us to judge a game by just what it looks like on the surface, as simple and as superficial as a box? What do you guys think?
Well, for me personally, like, very few box arts actually turn me off of games. That's honestly the truth. It's not something I really use as deciding whether I'm going to like this game or not. I can usually get a sense of whether or not the game is going to be like Ameritrashy or more thanky from looking at the box. Like if there's a train on it and it has the number 18 on it, it's probably going to be thanky. But I mean, like, yeah, I usually can't really feel like I know a game very well by looking at the box. I will say this, though. If the actual art depicted on the box is really amateurish and bad, the game is usually pretty bad. Because if the company's decision was to put awful art in the box is just not done well, they probably didn't care a lot about the other things in the box as well. So that's about all I really ever come away from it. It was like if the art is really bad, then the game's probably not all that great.
But what about Splotter?
Well, a lot of times don't even have any sort of art on the box.
That's fair.
Like what? I don't know. Like honestly, when I think of Splotter games, let's consider this for a second. Let's take each one as its own separate entity. I think Food Chain Magnet has like really a niche in like the retro style artwork. I think that's very
Food Chain Magnet. They did right. There's no ifs, ands, or buts.
I think the box art is just drawing people to that like crazy.
Yeah.
I think that like Indonesia has a beautiful like calligraphy style box art that doesn't show anything about what the actual game is.
Yeah, and then since it's a Splotter game, there's nothing to read on the back to give you a clue.
Oh man, I still don't get like that is literally the only game company that does that outside of like 18xx games. It's just like a white bottom. Like I feel like that's something that you go into like Kinko's, ask them how much the bottom of the box costs. They tell you it's like $15 to do a custom print, and you're like, no thanks. And Splotter's like, nah, we're gonna sell this regardless, so whatevs.
That's a fair statement though. If it's Splotter, it's gonna sell out. Unless it's Duck Dealer. Duck Dealer do not sell out. But no, but I know what you mean. But, there are people that complain about Splotter's artwork. Like there's people that pitch a fit about Roads and Boats. Now I actually think that's kind of an interesting art style, but and what they went for was
I'm
actually
okay with the box art. The component art is different, but the box art to me is quite nice. It's just every time that you pick up a Roads and Boats, or not a Roads and Boats, but a Splotter game, to me it is fairly unforgivable. But the back of the box They didn't even bother to make it like textured. You know, if it was textured or, you know, looked like wallpaper of some sort, just like, you know, for example, they just chose to reprint the front cover of the box art on the back, I don't think anybody would say anything. But the fact that it's just like this, you know, like very sterile white is it just feels like a missed opportunity no matter how you spin it.
Oh yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I would agree. It's just an interest. Yeah, I don't know. Splatter,
It's a vessel. It's nothing but a vessel. I still haven't bought a Splatter game, and I don't think it's because of the box art. I would say though that like it makes me wonder how much of a superficial person I am.
Oh no, you would have. If it hadn't been you got hit financially, you would have bought Great Zimbabwe. Don't lie.
Yeah. Oh no, man. Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to be able to pay the bills. What with everything that we've tried to do with the house and everything trying to come in, we need to sell. We need to get this house sold faster than the 3 weeks that our closing date is. But yeah, you're right, man. I really do love the Great Zimbabwe. I actually love the art style of that too. But I don't think the front cover box art really does the whole, like the gods that they have, you know, the images of the different gods, and I'm really impressed by in general by the type of just the art style and how cohesive it is, how much I feel like it complements the different art pieces complement each other. And I feel like the shades of the game, like the different shades they chose, like the sort of watercolor backgrounds, like I really enjoy that. I feel like the box art kind of betrays it just a bit, though.
I don't think. You know, not that I know of, but I don't think there's a Splatter game that you can look at the box art and even the descriptions on it and have any idea of how that game's going to actually play.
No, and I think that just shows for just, you know, how kind of superfluous box art can be.
Right.
Depending on your audience, you know, you've got box art is either going to be simply the vessel that, you know, maybe I think the only thing I can say about Splatter games is it's better than just getting like corrugated brown cardboard.
Yeah. But, you know, to bring it to another style though, because, you know, Trent, did you say this on air or off? Yeah. Anyway, Trent at one point was kidding to me about if all has to have is, you know, trains on it and Andy will be happy. But but you know, with the 18XX ones, like, you know, when they choose that image, there is some intention to that, because, you know, if you throw like a picture of a British railway on a 18XX game that takes place in Italy, I guarantee you there are train gamers in the forum just waiting to pounce on someone when they do that. It's just be like, that is not historically accurate.
Will you become one of them is the big question. How deep is Andy going to go into the 18XX faction?
Well, see, I'm weird though about that, because for me it's not like the train history is kind of, you know, interesting and all, but like for me it's all number crunching. Like that's what really I love. The trains as a vehicle to deliver the depth of the content, but you know, there's a whole subset of that culture that's just like, I have my favorite railroads, and I'm like, I don't even know what it's this one. But I mean, there's a lot of them. They'll be like, there's historic and non-historic companies, and there's, I'm sure, train gamers who would know which ones those are. I don't. But I mean, but there is some intention even in those in what box art they choose. Like it should be representative of the history and the period and such of where the game takes place. Much in the way I think, you know, most historical games try to have an image that evoke that theme or period that the game's going to be set in.
Absolutely. And I think to try to synthesize what you were just saying, together with what Trent said earlier, I have different expectations of a box art based on what type of game it is. Usually, if a game is Ameritrash, I expect more from the box art. I expect more information. I expect more action. I just expect things to look a little bit more like they're trying to get me to buy that game based on the artwork that's going to sell the setting. And I think that with Euro games, though, I'm looking for more of an understated cover. And I feel like when it can be kind of problematic is when you have a game that's of one style, like more of a, Euro gamey, like, I don't know, kind of a multiplayer solitaire. I don't want to say just multiplayer solitaire, but more of an understated cover is what you expect from Euro games, right? You expect to see a little bit of the setting, a few people smiling at you, or maybe scowling if you're Kalis and you want to give people nightmares. And you want to see basically just, some pretty colors, the setting, and fairly like, like people that are not exactly engaged in the thick of it. And I think that from Ameritrash games, an example of a pretty big fail as far as box covers go would be Cry Havoc. I think that the box cover of Cry Havoc just fairly well betrays the actual gameplay involved. I think that they could have tried to go with like a battle ongoing, and instead they just went with like some souped up like cryogenic suit, and you don't ever really see that person in the game. I don't know what they were looking to promise. I don't know what they were looking to prove. It just, to me, like, I don't know. It just doesn't really come together. I feel like it's an example of what I would see as a fairly Ameritrash style game. I don't want to say Ameritrash because I love the game Cry Havoc, but it's a fairly like combative game, and I don't see the any sort of grandiose conflict or any sort of conflict whatsoever being depicted on its box art. You guys have any comments at that point?
Not about Cry Havoc in particular, but kind of getting back to your expectations of different game types, in what you expect out of their box art. Like when I'm just browsing shelves, which I don't often do, as I get more into sort of the really niche areas of the hobby, like I do less and less of that. But when I browse the shelves, I often like look at box art like I do movie trailers. So if I look at a box art that, say, reminds me of like a movie like The Fast and the Furious, it's like, ooh, collisions, explosions, blah, over the top. I'm like, okay, that is not a game I need to play, or a movie I need to see. Even though I like Star Wars, so who knows? But anyway.
You were young once, Andy. You weren't always a curmudgeon. Yeah,
that's fair enough. But when I go... Yeah, well, I'm also a sucker for spaceships. Let's just be honest. But anyway,
you know what they should have done? High Frontier. The entire box cover of High Frontier is just a mathematical equation.
Yeah, that would have been more representative of the gameplay. Anyway, I guess when I look at box art, I'm looking. I mean, if it's done beautifully, that's interesting, but the more action it is, the more I might look at it, but probably the more I'm immediately put off. Because if I see lots of blasters and flying and bleh and explosions, like it immediately goes to me, this is going to be a super tactical, not terribly strategic dice chucker. So I tend to just kind of, okay, and I walk away. But when I look at something that's much more sort of subdued, laid back, if there's like grinding gears or smoking factories on it, somebody who looks like they're rich. Okay, so we're talking about the new brass cover, obviously.
Oh, man. Oh, Andy, you so ruined what I was going to say. Keep going, though.
But, I mean, that kind of thing more draws me in because I'm like, okay, this is probably going to be, anything that makes me think this is an economic game, as long as it's not Old Uncle Pennybags or whatever, that's a run the hell the other way.
Monopoly is an economic game, Andy.
Yeah.
It's about money.
Andy likes economic games.
Actually, legitimately, I am trying to convince my wife that we need to buy that Tropical Tycoon one so that I can play Monopoly with her to make her happy, and I can play one that I can actually maybe stand to play.
So what this basically told me is Andy listens to Flip the Table.
Yeah. No, I'd been thinking about it for a while. Where did I hear about it first? It wasn't on Flip the Table. It was somewhere else. But anyway.
It's weird when a Flip the Table one actually becomes like a positive review, and that was one of them.
Yeah, no, I'd actually heard that on someone else too. A couple people of like, if you got to play Monopoly, it is the best of that. That doesn't mean it's awesome, but it's the best of Monopoly.
Yeah.
But anyway, no, things that make me think of economic games, those are more likely to draw me in. The only thing that's like the crime sin against nature is if you make me think an economic game with that box cover, and it's not really an economic game. It's more of a more on the Euro side, so more of a systems thing. Like the money really isn't that big a deal. That really kind of torques me off when I'm.
Do you have an example of a game that kind of promises?
Oh, I want to think there's some that I've done that with, but
where you looked at me, you're like, this looks like it's gonna really hurt. I can't think of like an example of a money type game where it really depicts a lot of like cash bags that isn't just kind of a, like a light sort of. I don't know.
Not really light per se, but just about. Like there's a lot of Euro games that will claim to be on an economic side, but like the money's more just a way to get victory points. Like when I think of an economic game, I think of money as the end goal, not as the vehicle to get something.
What do you think of Mombasa? Because this is a question I have for you. Mombasa.
Mombasa's kind of on that route a little bit. Like it's a little bit more. Like you do things like Mombasa is a good example. Like, and I didn't hate Mombasa by any means.
I was gonna say, or are you frustrated? Because it sounds to me like you might be frustrated by the gray area, where it's like a game like Mombasa, where it's fairly well a Euro game. However, your money is what makes you points in the game. Everything is about money. Everything just amounts to money. However, the actions you're taking do not feel similar to what I think, Andy, you deem worthy of the economic game. It's almost like for you, Andy, your stamp of approval is to just say Andy and Andrew Dennison, economic game. And that's all it says on it. Well, I say it's economic. I love it.
I guess, one example would be Mombasa, and to another extent, another example would be Arkwright, which I love. And that's more closer to an economic game than I would say Mombasa is for sure. But I think where it trips me up a bit is when there's stocks in the game, but you can't trade them, you can't sell them. It's like stocks are just a victory point track kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Then that's where I feel like sometimes I've been misled a little bit, to where I'm like, well, I can't. It's not like a company. It's not like I can actually do anything with these stocks. It's just I'm getting points for them. And that being said, I still enjoy those kind of games. It's just sometimes, that's much more of a Euro way of doing stocks to me.
Yeah, much more of a way that I enjoy. So I guess that would be something that you dislike.
Yeah, well, I don't dislike it per se, but it's a little less interesting to me than the ability to sort of, trade those around as a means to an ends as well.
Yeah.
But I don't dislike. I mean, I still enjoy that aspect more than I do, like a crazy system where it's like pull this lever, turn this wheel, and victory points.
Yay! Trent, do you have any like? Any insert or any revisitation of what you said? Because I've got a thing to say, but I wanted to make sure you got a chance.
Go for it.
Well, based on what you said, Trent, I think like your sort of like expectation, like I just want to kind of have an idea of what's there in the game. Like when Andy mentioned Brass Lancashire or Lancashire, whatever it is, I think that it kind of does both. It depicts the same sort of like solemn-faced businessmen, but it does it with like this living, breathing, very contrasted, tenebristic art approach to like the actual industry going on in the background. The guy's smoking a pipe which has this smoke in it that's sort of revisited in the background in the factory with like this red hot coal that seems to be just like emanating off into the screen, into the background. And I think though that just the way that it's handled, it's been praised by more than just us. It's been very highly praised. It is like I don't know. I would say it's almost like a meme at this point, where you could post it up there, and it's like the poster child for how to make Euro style box covers relevant in current day. And it's like it takes that same sort of contrast that you're used to seeing an explosion heavy artwork cover from an Ameritrash game. Like, I think about the worst offender of that would be Shadowrun Crossfire, and it takes that sort of approach, but it sets it onto a setting in which you can really appreciate how different it is from what you'd expect from most of those types of games, which tend to be very much like, oh, hey, this is a good game, and yeah, don't worry about the smiling Vikings. This is a game about being a Viking, yeah. And I think when it comes down to it, the main thing that I think I love most in a box cover is when I look at that box cover and I continue to look at it and think about it in future, but that's totally contradictory to the point of the box cover in the first place. Like, for example, my first experience with A Few Acres of Snow's box cover is in a small thumbnail on the internet. I could not even tell what it was. I had no idea what it was. I didn't have any reason to really approach it. But when I actually got close to it, I saw that it was artwork that's actually used in the game. It's of the Native Americans. When I saw that, I was like, oh, I got to play this. And now every time I see that box art and I revisit it, I'm proud that I own the game. I'm proud, just like the conflict is, to me, so intriguing and interesting. And the box art they chose was just such a very, like, I don't know, kind of a controversial part of the game. It's a part of the game it's such an integral part of the entire depiction of that particular conflict of the French-Indian War. However, I couldn't even see what it was at first blush. So at first blush, when I was seeing it on a thumbnail, it was a failure. It got me no more interested in the game than anything else did, much less so than like a positive review of the game would. However, once I knew the game and I understood what to expect, I love seeing it. So I feel like in a sense, like, really, like, going deep into what a box art does for you and how interested it makes you, it's something I think that you should mention during a review, that like, hey, I thought this when I saw the box. But I don't feel like if you're really like that much of an experienced and I don't know, like, if you've got a resume as a board game reviewer, the box art of the game is really something that you're there to prove right or prove wrong, and it's just a thing to maybe mention, but it's not in any way a part of the entire experience. Andy yawns.
Oh, nah, it's 5 hours of sleep in like 2 days, so.
Oh, I feel you, man. I feel you. It's been some late nights here, so I've had these 2 away meets in a row. I've got 1 more away meet coming tomorrow, and it is going to be a welcome reprieve this weekend.
You know what makes me get through the long nights, though, is some good box art sitting next to the bed.
Yeah, actually.
A beautiful picture of a train keeps Andy warm at night.
That's it, right? Like the steam coming off. Except Joe goes to bed beside Kingdom Death Monster.
Oh. Wow. I'm just like taken aback. Wow. You left me speechless for a minute. I think that's something there, Andy. Whoa. I feel like I should have like a retort of some sort to just throw that one back on you, because I know that it was just you trolling me. At the same time, like, yes, Andy, Kingdom Death Monster, like a gigantic black box with nothing but an emblem on it. That is actually interesting.
The box art for there is actually kind of interesting. It's way more creepy when you get into the art inside the box.
Yeah, exactly. So the box art of Kingdom Death Monster is amazing. It makes me want to play the game. It's experiences I've heard from people who have played it that make me feel like if I played it, I might belong on a sex offender list.
Yeah. Oh, like an ad for it keeps showing up in my Facebook feed?
Yeah, what is this? Because I haven't seen this one yet.
It's like an ad for Kickstarter, but their like go-to thing is Kingdom Death Monster.
Oh, okay. I just figured that it was like Andy was using his laptop for porn, and then Kingdom Death Monster came up.
So I ended up putting
Which
in
I
the
still
comment.
believe, but yeah, keep going.
I put in the comment section just because I'm like, I want to troll for a minute. So I put, which I don't normally do, but every now and again.
Andy, you troll like crazy. No, shame on you. Don't believe that for a second.
I only cost like 70% of our failed verses. But Andy, I think I put in there.
You light fires, and then you walk. You very, very frequently will light a fire and then fade to the background.
That's because it's more amusing to watch. Oh no! What did I post there? It was something along the lines of, a giant box full of lots of plastic and mediocre gameplay. Yeah, this is pretty representative of Kickstarter successes.
Oh yeah. So Andy not only chooses to shoot, or I don't know. I was gonna say something else, but anyway, on Kingdom Death Monster, but he's got to make it sound like Kickstarter is capable of nothing but that. So and that of course is when Andy loses me. And had I had the energy to do anything at that point, Andy, then close the tab, I would have said something.
I'm looking at you too, Simon.
There's a lot of times when you're right, but I don't know.
I'm kidding, folks. Play what you want to play. It's fine.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I think like Concordia is one of the most criticized games, and then this new box art came out for Concordia that just simply had pretty much better colors of the same image.
Oh, people were like, that image was the thing that needed changed.
It's to me just like the new version of it. People were actually like, there were people who were like, oh yes, yeah, it solves the problem, and it's like, no, it's the exact same thing. Come on, all they did was put in more shadows. It's less washed out, but it's just shadows. I mean, don't get me wrong, like the Concordia Salsa expansion, that box art is terrible, but the Concordia one, Concordia original versus the Concordia new one, to me is just, it's almost like they shadowed it too much. Like they're like, this woman lives in the shadows in the box art.
Yeah. Well, the high school graphic designer they hired did wonders for that age.
Yes, Andy, that's what I was thinking too, because I was wanting to insult everyone.
It's lack of sleep. I'm feeling salty. It's all good.
Any final thoughts on box art, guys?
I don't have any problem with most of it, so I didn't really have much to say on this. So I'm not very opinionated when it comes to box art.
No, I got what you were saying. I was hoping to maybe distill it into more of my like I care about everything approach to everything.
The pinnacle of the box art is the previous edition of Kalis.
Yes, it is. Anything that you can keep by your person at all times to scare away young children.
That's right.
No. What you do with that is you blow that up into a large picture and you put it on your child's wall, just so that they always know they're being judged and judged harshly.
Yes.
I should totally blow that up and put it in my classroom. That's what I should do. Yeah.
Yeah, you sure should there, Andy.
And then you should take a picture of yourself standing in front of it with a scowl.
Oh, no. I'll put Kalis in the back of the room and Kalis Magna Carta in the front of the room.
Okay, Kalis Magna Carta is a different type of awful. Kalis is like it's sort of like it succeeded in what it was attempting, but it still just like why? Kalis Magna Carta is almost like you're looking inside like a whole bunch of just dumped in paints that have been stirred around a little bit and then spread out to start looking like three creepy men that are like convening around a cauldron, which is actually a table, and there's no positives to it.
Yeah, see, Kalis Magna Carta, I like to think of that is the mugshot picture that was taken when the king in Kalis was busted for being a sex offender.
He was caught in the act.
Yeah.
Like.
I don't know. My final thoughts on box art is, like I said, I think for me, ultimately, it doesn't make a huge difference on whether I'm going to play it. But I think if I'm browsing shelves, like I said, it's kind of like movie trailers for me. The more glitz, glamour, and explosions and special effects in the trailer, they probably made up for that with lack of other interesting things. So it tends to steer me away a little bit.
Understatement is huge, Andy. I agree with that. Understatement is huge.
Exactly. So that's kind of my feelings. Less is more. Brass gets it right. That's a really good example of how to have beauty and yet get the theme across. So I don't know. Whoever designed that one, if that cover does not win Artwork of the Year, that's a crime at this point.
Yeah, I mean, they're always looking for different things. It was the same people who did Steampunk Rally. I think it just shows you how different artists with different prompts can produce such vastly different pieces.
Yep.
Well, yeah, box art's quite interesting, but we're going to go ahead and move on.
If anyone uses Comic Sans in their box art, the game sucks.
Yeah, if you use one of those type, like Colibri might be the worst, though. I feel like Colibri, like, it just gives you that feeling like you're trying to look like Comic Sans, but you're not quite there. I don't know.
It's like Comic Sans without the commitment to shittiness.
Yeah, certainly.
Anyway.
So, Star Trek Frontiers is getting an expansion. It's called The Wrath of Voltaire. The Wrath of Khan. Because
they really legitimately called it The Wrath of Khan.
They did, yeah. They called it. I'm pretty sure the last I saw it was called The Wrath of Khan, unless I'm remembering it incorrectly.
It's the Return of Khan.
Oh, Return. Sorry.
God.
Yeah. My apologies, ladies and gentlemen. But anyway, I've just finished reading the Star Trek Frontiers rulebook, and I'd have to say that I am now a huge fan of Star Trek. If you've been following my growth from somebody who's never watched any Star Trek to watching Star Trek The Next Generation and just being totally blown away over the last several months of my life, like, I am such a huge Star Trek fan. But all I could think when I was reading through the cards and all the other elements here was just so much of Star Trek Frontiers is a copy and paste reproduction of Mage Knight. And that to me is unacceptable. There's very subtle changes, but none of the changes to me border on like replacement, or not just replacement. I want to say replacement because I'm not looking to replace Mage Knight. I want to say just like peaceful coexistence. And there is nothing in Star Trek Frontiers that I could see that really carved out its own niche. Maybe the Return of Khan will do it. But I will tell you right now, my expectations are fairly low because the whole idea of Khan is almost right in line with the Mage Knight Voltaire expansion, which is considered essential, but Star Trek really needs to do something more than just reprint Mage Knight stuff. It just needs to. I'm disappointed that that's the way I felt after reading through all of the cards in the base game and all of the rules, but I'm still hopeful. He could still hit his stride. I've got hope that this can be something better than what I'm expecting. What do you guys think? What do you think, Trent?
I pretty much agree with you. The base game is a lot like Mage Knight. This will probably be a lot like Lost Legion. My question is what they do after that. I kind of expected that the first expansion would basically be Lost Legion.
Yeah.
But there honestly isn't much else to Mage Knight after it. You have Shades of Tesla, which is pretty mediocre, and then you have the Krang expansion or whatever, the Ninja Turtles crossover or whatever that is.
Yeah.
I thought that the expansions, there were some interesting things that were added in the Shades of Tesla. I thought, they were so poorly botched component-wise that I think it was unforgivable. It made it so that you had to buy bags for the whole game, and then when things would come up, sometimes it would just be like, this ain't worth the trouble of the fact that these components suck so bad.
Yeah, and here's the thing, I guess my thoughts. Would I go out and buy this now that they've got this out? Probably not. If, however, you were a gamer that doesn't own Mage Knight and you're looking to buy Mage Knight or Star Trek Frontiers, and you're like, which way you want to go. Basically, what I'm saying is before this, I would consider Star Trek Frontiers to be far inferior because the Lost Legion expansion makes Mage Knight like it's a complete game. Well, not a complete game. It's a far superior game with it.
Yeah. It's just one extra card to your deck. It's only one, but that still it's much more interesting. It feels vastly different.
In terms of the solitaire play, trying to beat down Volcare is vastly more interesting than storming cities.
Yeah. Oh, I agree with that.
And so if this does for the base game what that did for base Mage Knight, what I would say now to someone, and I don't know what it does, but my assumption is that's what it's going to do. I would say to someone, okay, I prefer Mage Knight for these reasons, but as long as you get both expansion, that expansion with it, it's probably a complete game. And if you're more of a sci-fi nut, you like Star Trek, you'll probably enjoy it.
Andy, you're a sci-fi nut too. Shame on you. I know,
but I always my big thing is, I already have Mage Knight and it's awesome. And so I don't need it. But I guess what I'm saying is if someone didn't have either one and asked which to buy, now that this expansion is coming out, I could honestly say, yeah, go with the one you think you'll like more. Whereas previously I would have said, you know what? Yeah, it's Star Trek and that's cool, but get Mage Knight and Lost Legion because it's a far superior game.
And I agree with you. And I don't know why, but part of me wants to expect more simply because Star Trek Frontiers is a continuation of Mage Knight. It should be fixed and added to. It shouldn't just be released in the same sort of, just essentially copy and paste and then release the same thing. I expect more. I don't expect a paring down like I saw with Star Trek Frontiers and how they did the combined artifacts and spells in one deck. And I don't know, there were some other choices that to me just felt limited, but maybe Frontiers expansion, maybe the Return of Khan will do it for me. Who knows? All right, well, Trent, I know you've gotten a chance to rest your voice quite a bit during our topic, but would you tell us a little bit about being a lumberjack? And I promise you, it's okay.
I'm going to talk about lumberjack time. Okay, so this game I'm going to talk about is Lignum, which is actually sitting on my table right at the moment. And it looks very interesting, I've got to say. It's a game for 2 to 4 players. I would estimate that the box says 60 to 120 minutes, but I'm leaning towards the longer end of that. This is one of those games that looks like it packs a lot of hard decisions into the game length, which is something I look for in a game. It's basically in this game, you're a lumberjack, or essentially a crew of lumberjacks. I would say you're one of 2 to 4 competing lumber companies. And it's definitely an economic game, and you got to plan out how to use your lumberjacks very, very carefully. It's like a mix of, I would say it's a mix of worker placement and heavy economic. And it just looks, from everything I've read, that there are just tons of hard decisions in this. I got a few rather heavy games this week, and I've been reading rulebooks, and I'm like, they're hurting my brain, and this is one of them. This one and another one at Rolling Stock, I've read the rules to both of them, and they're just not quite clicking. I can see a lot of interesting things going on, but I need to play it to see how this comes together. And that really makes me want to get it to the table real bad. That makes me want to play it. I'm like, how does this work? I want to see how this works. And that's how I'm feeling about Lignum right now.
From what I've heard and read about it, this game is a super planning game. I get that. And the thing I like about it is that it does that path mechanism. So it's kind of like
Francis Drake or Igizia or Tokaido.
Yeah, right. And it does that. So it's how critical is this for you to get? Or are you going to let somebody else hoover up all the small bonuses? But at the same time, I think it is whoever gets to the first gets the prime wood cutting spots. So yeah, it's a whole lot of, I need these things, but I got to charge over there, and what do I do? And then there's basically, I know once you start getting to the advanced game, there's like work you plan ahead of time, and if you don't gather the right components for that, you've just like wasted horrible actions.
Yes. That's the full game I'm talking about. I'm reading the advanced rules of this. The basic game makes sense as like almost like a more complex Takedo is kind of almost the way I felt about it.
Mhm.
But the full game is like hurting my head in terms of figuring out. I mean, it's not rules wise that I don't understand it. It's like, how do you play this without like going insane?
Yeah, that's the thing I got out of it.
Yeah.
And to bring it slightly back full circle, this one's going to be reprinted by Capstone Games, and he's released the images of the box art, and whoa, that's like an upgrade. Like those images look beautiful, and that's something I know Clay is really, he's a component snob, and so yeah, he's definitely looks like the reprint and the re-release is going to be really nice looking.
Sounds legit. Yeah, that game could have certainly used a little bit more than just a guy wearing like what appears to be dinnerware while cutting, like Dutch dinnerware from the mid 17th or 18th century while cutting down a tree.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's wonderfully dressed.
Yeah, he's wearing like frills. Like I don't know.
An example of bad box art would have been putting Leatherface on the front cover.
You never know what you're going for, though.
Yeah.
Well, Andy, now 'tis your turn to tell us a little bit about how much you love Kickstarter games.
Yeah. Well, games that should be on Kickstarter. Anyway,
should be.
should be. Yeah. Well, Kickstarter should be for the niche market, right? Not the people who would rather have their money up front than risk it, making a game. But anyway, I'm going to just briefly talk about the BIOS Genesis 2nd Edition Kickstarter, which actually went live this morning. I don't know if they started in Europe first or what. I don't know. It's crazy. But I just saw it when I first woke up this morning, and I was just kind of sitting there eating my cereal and drinking coffee and getting ready for the day. And I had heard that they were going to do this originally, and I didn't have any interest in it because like I already have the game. Like I don't screw around with Sierra Madre. I'm going to buy it because they sell out fast. But there was enough demand for this that they decided to do it as a Kickstarter, and Phil Eklund partnered with a company he had a lot more faith in this time, in people. And the thing I like is they offered an upgrade pack. So if you already own BIOS Genesis, they offered for $19 this upgrade pack, which just replaces all of the cards and placards with the ones with the new artwork on it, which are a fairly big improvement. And it looks really nice. And plus, I just kind of like to support Sierra Madre because it keeps them going. So it was well worth, I think, the $19 I pledged on it. BIOS Genesis is a very interesting game. It definitely is much more of a simulation. But I would say if you missed it out on it and you're interested in it, this is the next way you're going to pick it up. And I know the other thing they're doing is BIOS Genesis basically didn't really make it into retail outlets at all to speak of. Uh-huh. And he's offering this one now to go into retailers now that, the demand is high enough to make it worth it. I know there's going to be some fixes on the cards and stuff, some printing errors that got into the first batch. And it's doing really well. Like I looked just before we started recording, and it's already 400% funded, which they weren't asking for a lot to begin with, because this basically is just, a few tweaks here and there. So anyway, check it out. If you want BIOS Genesis, you want to give it a shot, still pretty reasonably priced. They've already hit the only stretch goal they have, which is linen finished cards, which if you've ever played Sierra Madre games, that's like a sports car compared to what you normally get component-wise out of their games. So anyway, BIOS Genesis, the upgrade pack, if you've already got it, I think $19 is probably worth it, at least to me, to support them and kind of kick them going. The thing that I find most amusing about this whole Kickstarter is down at the bottom where they have this like disclaimer that says, please note, this campaign will be run by the designer and publisher of BIOS Genesis, Sierra Madre Games, and Caesar Al-Jazar of Alley Cat Games, and is not affiliated with the folks who ran the High Frontier campaign in any way. Which, if you've listened to me talk about the High Frontier campaign or know anything about it, yeah, I can see why they have that disclaimer there.
Yeah, but ultimately you were happy that you stuck with the High Frontier.
Oh yeah, don't get me wrong. I'm completely happy I got it. Like I said, I really wish. Apparently, they haven't paid Phil Eklund royalties yet or anything, which kind of bothers me. But yeah, I mean that was a quagmire and a half of a Kickstarter for various reasons. But I'm happy that I got the game. I was talking on the comments section for BIOS Genesis, though, and apparently, as I'm helping playtest BIOS Megafauna right now, the second edition one, and if I understand what they're saying correctly, there's going to be rules to upgrade, to basically play BIOS Genesis, take your end state, put that into BIOS Megafauna, take your end state, put that into the next game coming out, or BIOS Origins, and take your end state from that and incorporate it into High Frontier, which can then incorporate into High Frontier Interstellar. So you could essentially play one campaign starting from chemical processes, getting to the first living creature, to colonizing another planet.
Except, Andy, don't forget that one individual will certainly die in the first game, and then because of a dice roll or a card flip.
Oh yeah. My goal is
and then
at some point in my life
they will no longer participate. They'll have no ability to participate, or they'll be so curtailed that they'll be nothing but a spectator for the next 4, and that will continue then on throughout.
Now you do that.
That's what BIOS Genesis felt like to me.
Yeah, pretty much. That's why I play that as a solitaire game. As a solitaire game, I quite enjoy it. The times I've played a multiplayer, yeah, maybe not so much. But solitaire, fine. It's good for that.
When Andy doesn't have to weigh other people's frustrations with the randomness, it's okay.
Well, not so much that. I mean, the problem is the most ideal first move is to make sure that somebody won't be allowed to roll any dice in a game that requires rolling dice, which kind of sucks. So anyway, as a solitaire game, yeah, I really actually enjoy the game. Multiplayer, maybe not. But I don't know.
Am I that somebody, Andy? Is that who you're referring to?
What, playing a multiplayer?
Well, yeah, like somebody won't have to roll any dice?
Legitimately, I personally find, like, this isn't a case of I think there's somebody out there that I would like to play this game multiplayer with. Like, I personally just would prefer to play this game solo.
Sure. Interesting. Well, thank you, sir. And thanks to you, our listeners, for sticking with us to the end of this episode. I'm your host, Joe Sallin. I've been joined tonight by
Andrew Dennison.
Trinham.
Have a great week of gaming, and come join us next week here on The Good, The Bored, and The Ugly.
Ow. Oh, I've been switching my mic on and off because I've been sneezing.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. I can appreciate that. I do that too. Like, there's a couple of times, there's at least once, Trent, when you were talking that I laughed and started talking, and then you interrupted me, and I was like, what the hell? And then I looked at my mic, and I pressed the button, but it was still blinking. You know, like I hadn't actually pressed the button, though I thought that I had.
Yeah. Oh, let's see. Yeah, I think I'm going to be coming in dead last in 1856 here, Trent.
I'm thinking I got my second win in a row.
I think you do.
Because I'm earning more money per round than Joe is, and there's no way it makes it past this next OR. So
Nah, I've already dumped all the money I can in. It's gonna end. Oh well, I tried something. It didn't work.
yeah, there's only 2,000 in the bank right now. There's no way it makes it through another OR.
No way.
I mean, BBG hasn't even run yet, and it's got a 5 and a diesel, and then you got an entire another.
Oh crap! And I didn't run CGR either. It's payout.
Yeah.
So it'd be the same payout, which would be 69. Okay, I have to go back and see what he did with that.
What, CPR?
CGR.
That's Joe ran that. Did someone go out of order or something?
Well, I think he actually made moves with it, but like if he's at work, he can't always get the spreadsheet.
It says CGR tokens D17.
Oh, it was the same run payout.
And then runs for plus 50.
Okay, so yeah, he just didn't enter any of the information in. I'll do that quick. So he would have paid out. That'll go blah, 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 125. Oh God, yeah, that bank's dead.
I'm not even 100% sure it makes it through this OR.
Yeah.
Let alone the next.
69. So it's 50 higher than what it did last round, is what he said?
Yes.
I know it'll last this OR. There's no way BBG runs for enough to kill it. But it definitely ain't going to make it another OR.
No. BBG is going to run for close a lot. I don't know how much, but a lot.
Yeah. I don't think it will, but we'll see.
The funny part is when BBG runs, I make almost as much as Tony does.
Tony's getting better, though. He used to get constantly crushed. He's getting kind of competitive these days.
Is this Tony from Heavy Cardboard?
No. It's Joe Wiggins' friend, Tony. He's a hell of a nice guy. He plays with Joe a lot. But yeah. Where Joe can be kind of off-putting, I think Tony's kind of like me. He's like sort of the really super nice guy, even one that holds it all together.
Sure. Well,